Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I've been trying to make this video for such a long time again, but I finally got to the point where I could do it. So the first thing I did with making my brother's birthday cake was I made the batter, of course, but I decided to edit that part out since I didn't really get any good videos of it. So I just started here, and I really wanted to video this cake hack that I found because it really worked really well. So you fold the parchment paper in half and then in half again, and then you make it into a triangle and you cut it to the size of the cake pan. And it doesn't have to be perfect, and mine definitely wasn't, but it still worked really well, and I got a pretty good circle for the parchment paper. Anyway, I really liked the cake hack that I found, and it worked really well on all three pans, and I'm definitely going to keep it. It worked so well, especially when I sprayed it with the cooking spray, and I just really liked it. And it made my day happy instead of having to cut out a piece of parchment paper after measuring really hard. So this was actually my third cake pan, and since this is like my second time ever making a round cake, I did a really bad job at figuring out how much to put in each pan, and I only had 2 cake pans and it was a 3-layer cake. So it was just really hard to know how much to do in each pan. So that was just really hard for me. We always do 9x13 pans and then plop the frosting on top, but not this time. I felt fancy. So after smoothing it out, I put it in the oven for about, I think, 20 minutes. And it came out, and everyone was walking through the kitchen and telling me how amazing everything smelled and how they just wanted to eat it then and there. I was like, no, you don't. You want to wait for the caramel frosting. So soon after that, I started making the caramel frosting. And I did actually video boiling the butter and the brown sugar together, but somehow that got edited out of the video, and I didn't realize that until just now, and I felt so lazy. I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go with it. So this recipe was pretty maddening to me because it told me to take it off of the stove and let it cool, and it told me to let it cool for about 10 minutes. I was like, you don't let caramel frosting cool because then it will harden. But I went, you know what, just trust the process. This is what the recipe says. And it hardened. So here was me just trying to mix it in, and it took me so long to get it workable again. It was so annoying. So it told me only to put about a cup of powdered sugar in, but this was 3 cups later because it was just too thin. Even with it hardening, it was too thin. And then I finally got it to be about the perfect consistency. So then I put a little dollop on my cake table thingy to make sure that the cake didn't slide, and I started piping on the caramel. And again, this is my second time ever making a round cake, so if you don't like my process, I'm very sorry. I'm just not very experienced in the cake decorating world. I'm just not very experienced, so if you're actually a person that decorates cakes, I really hope you're not watching this video because I did a horrible job right here. I was so annoyed with how fast it was hardening because it was not supposed to harden. Like, why does the person who made the recipe lie? Because that's exactly what it was. It was a lie. They said that it would not harden. Maybe a thin film would form, but it would not harden. I'm very annoyed. By the time I got to piping on the second part, it was like completely hardened, and at this point my tip fell out. I again was very annoyed because the tip, like the hole for the tip, was actually a little too small, and I didn't want to make it any bigger, so I just went with what I had and I thought it would be okay. But no, it actually fell out. There was something wrong with the piping bag. So by the time I actually got all the frosting I needed out of the piping bag, the frosting was like pretty much hardened and not very workable. I was trying to do the best I could with the spatula, but I ended up having to get my fingers damp and try to spread it out that way because that was the only thing that was working. And it just was very annoying at that point. Also, very annoying, while I was making the frosting, I was like, should I do a single batch or a double batch? And I emailed the person who gave me the recipe. I was like, hey, do you think this would cover a 3-layer cake? And she went, yeah, it should. It should. Just double it to make sure. So I doubled it, and this is what I got. What you're looking at right now is all that it would cover. So I was like, either I'm going to make another thing of the caramel frosting, or I'm gonna make some buttercream. And that's what I did. I made buttercream, and here's me sifting the powdered sugar, which I always really do with frosting. So I just decided to make the buttercream, which ended up working really fine. It was a vanilla cake with caramel frosting on the inside and buttercream on the outside. And I beat the butter for about 5 minutes, and I didn't want to have you watch the whole thing, so here it just magically became frosting. And actually making frosting for me is really fun, and I just really love the process of making a buttercream. It's just really relaxing sometimes. I don't know why. I just really love it. So after I did that, I just put it in a piping bag and started trying to do the crumb coat. And I had never done a crumb coat on a cake before, so I was really confused on how to apply it, and I ended up watching probably about a dozen or two videos on how to make a crumb coat, and none of them looked all that easy, so I just picked one and went with it, and it did not work very well. So here is just me trying to figure out how to make it work well. It was so hard. I think the crumb coat might have actually been my least favorite part of making the cake. I mean, the crumb coat was so hard. People underestimate how hard it can be to make a cake, and this was probably part of the hardest part. And just making it smooth was so annoying, and I had already put so much effort into making the cake, and the caramel frosting was already really annoying, so trying to figure this out was just one more thing that I did not really love doing. And the edges were maddening because at one point I had them smooth, and then I was like, you know what, let me just do this one more time, and then I messed them up. I really am just not very talented at making a cake yet. Hopefully we'll get there someday though. So then I put it in the fridge to chill, and it chilled for about 20 minutes, and at that point I was running really low on time, so I just kind of had to go with it, and it was pretty much hardened. At this point, I was getting pretty close to having enough frosting on the cake and having it decently smooth, and I went to go grab my cake scraper, and that's when I realized that I didn't have one, and it was really annoying because that's what I really needed in the moment, and I probably could have made the cake look a lot better if I had it, but I just decided to once again wing it. So I started making rustic sides, and I just made the rustic side and it looked really, really good. And then I made the shell border, and I was running so low on time that I didn't even have time to make to switch a cake tip or anything. So I just used the same cake tip on the whole thing. I wanted to make it fancy, but this is all I could do. So I just did the shell border on the top and the shell border on the bottom, and it ended up looking pretty good. Once I finished the bottom, I started on the top, and I really liked being able to see the top better than I saw the bottom, and it was really just satisfying. I could have done this all day, and I wish I could show you the whole process, but my camera died, so that's all you get to see except for the end. Hope you liked this video. Thanks so much for watching. Hope you liked it.